Welcome to the Halo Effect, hospitality stories with Ashleigh and Michael Donald.
With over 40 years working in the hospitality industry, we've lived some incredible experiences, and as a husband and wife team, we continue to forge our path through business and life that continues to present challenges and opportunities. Through this podcast, we would like to share these experiences and provide some behind-the-scenes insights into the world of hospitality and entrepreneurship.
We hope that this will help anyone who is on a similar journey by sharing how we forged our own path through this incredibly rewarding, yet often challenging industry. Hello and welcome to the Halo Effect Hospitality Stories with Ashleigh and Michael Donald. Today we're going to be talking about branded versus independent hotels in the hospitality industry. It's a really interesting subject and something that suits us quite well with our background. Both of us worked in Starwood back in the day, which became part of the Marriott family, and we've also worked in family restaurants and family hotels as well. So we know quite a bit about both angles. But today, let's maybe start about talking about branded hotels. And Ashleigh, maybe you can give us an idea of what do you think really sort of defines what a branded hotel is?
Hi everyone. Well, it's names that we'll all, I'm sure, recognise. You mentioned Marriott, Hilton, Hyatt,
The big ones.
Big global players. Generally speaking, a brand is when we're thinking from a hospitality perspective, they generally have more than one property. They will have a big presence. They'll have a lot of infrastructure. They'll potentially have a loyalty program. And what I suppose constitutes the brand is that consistency. Whether you stay at said brand in Berlin or Bangkok, you are essentially going to experience something that's very similar. It will have the same standards of service. It will have the same logo above the door. And apart
what
from
kind of menu is probably going to be there, the food is probably going to be similar.
And it's that
there's a comfort in that for
built-in global recognition. So it does come with lots of benefits. And as you mentioned, we started our career in Starwood, and the infrastructure and the opportunities to grow as a business because your brand is recognised, and we saw a huge period of growth with Starwood. I remember there being at any one time at least 100 hotels in the pipeline awaiting to be opened, because of the recognition and the loyalty that they'd built as a brand. It meant that they could scale quickly, and they had a lot of hotel owners that wanted to work with them and have their brands above the door. But even within Starwood, which then, as you say, became part of the Marriott family, when we worked at Starwood, there were at least 10 brands. So there was Westin, Sheraton, Luxury Collection, W, and then it became around 20 brands. It became part of Marriott. So whilst each of those brands will have their sort of nuanced attributes, within the Marriott family, you would have that more select service right through to full service, real luxury brands. But obviously, the more brands there are, the more clearly you have to define exactly what those values are for each brand. So you can really tap into those guests' kind of emotional reasons to want to stay with you. So I think as there are more brands, and that is the case for a lot of the big players, the Hiltons, the Marriotts of the world, that they just are having more and more brands. So that recognition and the definition can become quite tricky. So it's really interesting how it's exploded. But look, I think I'm as you know, marketeer, and for me, brand is so important. It's about building trust. It's about having that credibility, and really, when somebody chooses to engage with your brand, they choose to stay at your hotel, they are coming with a set of expectations that have been built through your marketing, your communications, and that consistency and that delivery of service needs to really match and exceed their expectations to continue to build and nurture that loyalty. So it's it's a big thing, and I think it's not just about a logo and a colour palette, as we know. It's right the way through. What does your brand mean from the way that you recruit your team members? What does it mean from the way you speak to your guests, both on the website as they're booking, in their email confirmation, to when they're on property? So it touches all areas of the operations. It's not just a marketing or a nice sort of fluffy thing. It's very much, it has to be integral throughout. So and from your perspective, I mean, you're very much from the operations and that service delivery side. What does working for a brand mean to you, and your experience of working in that branded environment?
Well, so my hotel career started in a hotel which was mostly known for its restaurant in Dublin. It was called La Stampa. It was very famous in the sort of the 90s in Dublin, the Celtic Tiger. And I was sort of starting to get itchy feet, and I wanted to kind of explore the world, and I wanted to move to New York. That's where I really wanted to move. But I wanted to move to a big city. And then a friend told me that there was a job available in a hotel in Scotland called Turnberry. But at the time, it was the Westin Turnberry, the Westin being the Starwood brand at the time, and still worldwide recognised brand, but it was the only Westin in the UK at the time. So Turnberry is kind of a strange one, because Turnberry is almost independent, because it's always been known as Turnberry Hotel, currently also Trump Turnberry. But it's also been known by a number of different names when it's been associated with a hotel brand. But that's probably a terrible example of comparing the two, actually, because it's both.
Exactly.
But when I moved there, what I did realize was that although the hotel and the golf had its own sort of identity, the support structures around the corporate background were incredible. And yes, I wanted to move to New York City, and ended up in Maybole in South Ayrshire, which is a little bit different. A little bit different. But I still felt part of a huge community, and New York felt closer than when I was in Dublin. There was starting to sort of understand that it was part of a global thing, and it was easier to travel. It was easier to book hotel rooms in New York, or in London, or anywhere. I mean, I think I stayed in New York in 2005 for the very first time, and I stayed in a hostel and paid, I think, maybe $70 for a hostel per night. And then I went a year later and stayed in the W Times Square, and probably paid $70 per night to stay on the 40-something floor. For just a year later. So everything felt the world felt a little bit smaller, a little bit more accessible. But also within the structure of the service standards and the HR structures and the sort of the guidance that you could have, you had a lot more accessibility to kind of create things. My first job, it was very much about making things up as you go along and learning by experience, whereas with the structure of the brand standards, people have learned from experience already, and they're passing down that knowledge so that you can not make the same mistakes again, and you can build. Yeah,
I think that really was my first experience of understanding what a brand was as well, and also I spent many years at Turnberry as well, and it was just as Westin globally were, well, in fact, all of the Starwood brands were really rolling out that additional definition of what is a brand and how do we convey this to our team and our guests. And I remember Starwood invested a huge amount of time and resource, and we had some incredible training and this brand immersion training of the Westin and what the Westin meant.
And it's the launch of the service culture, wasn't
exactly. It was the launch of service culture, and we did everything from emotional intelligence and profiling. Your own profile, your team members' profile, looking at what guest personas were and how you could adapt. And that was really, the first time that I'd ever come across that, and what that was, that mid 2000.
It felt like a kind of a hospitality education.
Absolutely.
In that kind of
and although Turnberry in itself almost is an independent brand, because it has always been Turnberry for over 100 years, and that's really what it's always going to be known as, whatever brand is above the door, there was still a lot of the service culture and brand touch points around well-being and just being really attuned to and anticipatory in terms of your guests' needs, which I think were really powerful. And I always remember that training and reflect on it often. Whenever we're doing consultancy work with our clients. But you're right, I think that there was the structure there was some amazing support hubs that you could easily access everything from brand standards, other best practices. So whether there was maybe case studies of hotels that had increased their guest satisfaction scores or employee satisfaction, guests that might have had, hotels that might have had similar challenges to you and had implemented certain things that they could then report back on. And you and I both did some Six Sigma training in those days, which, is outside of hospitality, is a, process improvement methodology that I think was made most famous with GE, am I right in saying?
Yeah, GE, Motorola.
Yeah. But it was applied, I think Starwood were the first hospitality company to adopt the Six Sigma methodologies. And it was really, very forward thinking, and there was a huge number of projects that were rolled out and then used as sort of divisional and global projects that allowed Starwood to really learn from their global hotel portfolio and all of the specialist team members that were in that, and galvanize that resource to support and grow and optimize their hotels. So for me, that first experience with Starwood, and throughout our career, I think we've stayed connected to all of our friends and Starwood family that we met, and a few of our clients that also worked for Starwood. We recall these great days and have amazing memories of working there, and you're right, that opportunity to progress from a career perspective as a team member. From Turnberry, I headed off to Thailand, and that was through the Starwood infrastructure, and moved from the Western Turnberry to Starwood's luxury collection in Phuket. And that was all possible because of this global network and this brand. So I think, there's a lot of benefits, both from a guest perspective, and that consistency and the resources that are available to really enhance that guest stay and build that loyalty and a team members. And then of course you've got the loyalty programs as well. So I mean, you're loyalty specialist here and do a lot of work with our hotel clients around building loyalty. But from a brand perspective, talk us through loyalty programs as it stands in the branded world of hospitality.
Yeah, well, I think in terms of the brand, I think it's probably best is that getting the personalized data from customers and preferences is so key if you're going to have 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 hotels around the world, and you're going to try and offer a consistent experience. Because that consistency, certainly at branded hotel level, is definitely expected. Yeah. Whether someone's staying for the first time or the 10th time, or the 100th time with the brand and the first time at the hotel, that those expectations are there. And I love the quote from, we have a few friends that work within the brand teams, and they say, even though customers, we often see loyalty programs as being something to kind of try and offer discounts and things like that, but generally, I think with the really big ones, certainly with Marriott, you find that a lot of the most loyal customers there will actually spend more. They'll actually spend more because they want to make sure that they're getting the value of being in the higher tiers, making sure that they're taking advantage of everything, and they stay more often. They become incredibly loyal. It's almost loyalty beyond reason is a thing we talk about all the time, because they are becoming part of the team, and they don't even consider booking anywhere else because they're so well looked after. And the loyalty programs are so crucial to doing that. That consistent communication, the consistent service.
Yeah, it's definitely moved beyond just the accumulation of points. As you say, it's offering
so.
that personal added value to really enhance their stay. And it's been great to see some of the moves with these big loyalty initiatives around offering kind of money can't buy experiences.
Yeah.
So whether it's backstage passes to amazing concert that no one can get access to, or just something that you would never have been able to organize yourself, but because of the power of the brand, that they've got access to, whether it's people or experiences, that they can then create these incredibly enriching experiences for their loyal guests.
We have a friend, Matt, who works with Hilton and the Hilton loyalty programs, and some of the things that Hilton Honors are offering are incredible, whether it's backstage passes down on the grid and in Formula One, or I don't know, have you seen the one where they create a bedroom on a green at golf tournaments? So whether it was this recent Solheim Cup or some of the big tournaments, they'll actually have a bedroom set up on the back of the green, and you can lie in bed and watch the golf. So you could fall asleep very comfortably there watching the golf, Ash, if you
that's where you'll find me.
But just incredible experiences, as you say, that money can't buy. You wouldn't even think to buy it. It's something that you wouldn't even consider was an option, but they create that, and it becomes something that is just an experience that it's brilliant.
Yeah, and I think that's keeping people loyal is creating that experiential element. There's various kind of frequent flyer blogs and hotel loyalty blogs that might share, for this limited time they're offering, triple points or whatever. But I think, once you've created that emotional loyalty, that loyalty beyond reason, those loyal guests essentially become your ambassadors for your brand as well. So I think, it's been really interesting to see how the loyalty initiatives have really moved beyond points, and are able to really personalise that based on data, based on guest behaviour, and also based on what the guests tell us as well, that, we have the opportunity to speak to these guests at an individual level and understand their preferences. And we've got this information that shows us across all of our locations as a brand how often these guests stay, travel, the reason for travel, and we can adapt as a team member greeting those guests. The same guest might come with their family or come the next week on business, and their needs are quite different, although it's the same guest. So we can be really adaptable to the guest persona and the guest's kind of reason for visit. So it's really interesting, and I think the power of data and the various sort of tech platforms have helped to accelerate that as well. I suppose from a challenge perspective, we have touched on these standards of service, which can lead to consistency, but can it also limit options and creativity as well, in your view and experience?
I think so. I think sometimes that sort of almost algorithmic personalization can be seen as a little bit inauthentic. I mean, when you actually get it and you realize, that is pretty close to what I want, but you also know that there's an algorithm working behind there. It's not necessarily something that someone's maybe chosen for you in particular. And as people have recently, certainly as well, looking for more authentic experiences, something that really is personal. And that means not perfect. I mean, these personal recommendations aren't always perfect. Sometimes you want something a bit imperfect that you might not have thought of, and you might not think you're interested in, but actually once you go and do it, you are interested in it. And I think an algorithm would struggle a little bit with that, because they will go with what you say you want or say you like, more so than actually. Have you ever thought maybe you would like something like this?
And then I think also with centralised procurement as well sometimes. And I know, we've worked with big brands in the past where there's been that reticence to maybe just pop down to get the fish from the local fish market that's a couple of miles away, because actually they've got a supplier that the fish might come from there, but it's frozen. It travels 300 and however many miles to the depot to then get processed, and then it can come back. So, I mean, this is, going back a few years and quite an extreme example, but
it could be worse now.
That sort of centralized purchasing kind of approach can sometimes limit the opportunity to work with local suppliers and local businesses, or that there's such a rigorous vetting process to onboard suppliers that actually local suppliers just can't compete. So there's definitely limitations, and I think things to be aware of. But, as we say, lots of benefits
and
as
of
well.
course, those are some of the areas that independent hotels or restaurants might have a little bit more flexibility and the ability to do something a little bit different.
So let's talk about independent hotels, and maybe we can kick off with your own personal experience, because you we've talked about Starwood, now part of Marriott. We were both there for many years, and then you made quite a big move to an independent hotel, and I think the experience was quite different, and you've learned a lot from both experiences. So just tell us a little bit about when you left Starwood and where you went to.
So I moved to the Goring, which is a family-owned hotel. The last 5-star hotel in London, still owned by the family who originally built it. So it's on the 4th generation of leadership at the moment, and still is, and it is a very special place. Like it is fiercely independent, and it really feels that throughout the experience.
Definitely.
There's a sense of humor directly from the family built into the core of the business. There isn't any corporate structure that holds up any decisions, and things can move quickly because of that. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean things always run quickly. Sometimes corporate structures are set up in such a way that they can move quickly and adapt, but we could literally speak to Jeremy Goring, say we were thinking of doing this, or they could come up with an idea and we want to do this, and suddenly it's happening that afternoon. It can be quick. We could change. We could change standards. We can make changes straight away. There's that sort of creative freedom to really create those personalized experiences. And when you say you can go beyond expectations for any individual customer, you really can, because you have that freedom. You could say, okay, I'm going to go and look after this guest and this, and I'll come back the next day. I'll be away for a while. We had situations where butlers were sent off to Las Vegas to meet clients.
Wow.
It's not necessarily something you would see happen in a corporate hotel. So it is something really unique that the big branded hotels possibly can't offer that sort of authenticity and creativity. But I think the relationship with the customers is the most important one. There isn't really there's almost a distance with customers in a sort of a larger branded hotel, but you can really, when people have been coming for generations to an independent hotel with the name above the door, the name of the owner above the door, I think there is something more personal there. That is very, very difficult for a big branded hotel to copy.
To make that connection and that multi-generation as well. And, a hotel like the Goring that has been there for so many years and have seen, families come back time after time.
Royal families often.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It is very special. And I think that... So something that really resonates with me around independent hotels is this concept of a neighbourhood hotel, essentially, that are really connected really genuinely to the local community, have the flexibility and the independence to work with other small local businesses, have a real vested interest in the community, in the sustainability, working with local charity partners and making a real difference to their community. And, we've had the opportunity to work both directly, as you say, with your experience at the Goring, and also from our client portfolio as well with independent hotels, and having that real connection with the community and building that as a real symbiotic relationship between the community and the hotel is really special. So I think, that huge benefits around that flexibility, guest relationships and freedom, and to offer, essentially authentic experiences that do genuinely reflect the local culture, and support the local economy. But I suppose, as we've talked about the benefits from a branded perspective and all of the infrastructure, what are some of the challenges for independent hotels, would you say?
There's no doubt there's going to be less people available to help out in situations. I mean, you might have in a smaller hotel, you might have one marketing person, or I mean, a lot of independent hotels will maybe hire a marketing consultant or agency to help out. Our contact details are in the description. But the benefit of in a big branded corporation is that you might have a lot more support.
You've got those resources and assets and campaigns and
templates, and you can kind of run things pretty easily, and you can kind of get campaigns out there quickly, whereas it might take a little bit more work and a little bit more forward planning doing it in-house. And I think financial risks, operational financial risks, I think are real. If you have the support of another 1,000 hotels, you can kind of
offset and balance.
You can send business to one hotel. If one hotel is full, you can kind of direct them towards over another hotel, overbook. You can play around with the revenue management in that sense. You get a better feel for an area if there's multiple hotels in the area. Whereas if it's just the one hotel operating by itself, you might not have those. Well, you won't have the same level of relationships. You can certainly build relationships with other hotels that you can send business, but at the end of the day, they are competitors.
It is. I think you touched on that kind of marketing power, and I think that the distribution power as well, and particularly with hotels as they're launching and they don't necessarily have that recognition yet, they can become very reliant on OTAs and other third-party platforms to be visible. And you need to really earn that reputation and and really to get that visibility to your website. So I think there's definitely a lot of work to really establish a great sort of system of being able to get positive reviews and start to build up that credibility, get people to book direct next time with some sort of incentive, and we've touched on loyalty initiatives, and the brands do that brilliantly, and they cost a lot of money, and the apps that they develop, I mean, it's a huge investment that's gone in there,
but then it's split amongst. If it's split amongst thousands of hotels, then there's there's savings per hotel, I suppose.
There is, but also, we see we work with one of the big hotel management partners that are one of the largest franchisees of IHG hotels, and IHG are massive, but sometimes the campaigns that they're running that might be driving more sunny resorts aren't necessarily benefiting the locations where the hotel management group that we work with have hotels. So sometimes it can be so big that actually you miss some of that more localized spotlights that you might need for need hotels. But I think where it's been really interesting and an area that we're both really passionate about and have had the opportunity to really be hands-on with is building an effective CRM for independent or small groups of hotels that, whilst they're not able to compete in that branded environment with the big players, the big global brands, they can still have a loyalty initiative that rewards guests that come frequently. They're high value guests that they can understand the frequency of stays, what they're doing while they're there, and personalize those experiences to build that loyalty.
Communication.
Yeah, so
communication.
There's, whilst I think, prior to these sophisticated CRMs being in the marketplace, independent hotels did struggle for that visibility and did really need to rely on the OTAs. And whilst that's still true, whilst they're being established and OTAs absolutely have their place, there is that opportunity that they can start to build their own data, and they own that data as well. It's not owned by the brand. They've got control of that first party data to use. So there is a lot of opportunities. It just potentially takes a bit longer to build and develop. So then I suppose you've kind of got this like hybrid in between element of sort of independent hotels. So we work with independent hotels, but actually on behalf of fairly big established hotel management partners. So the hotel management group will provide that infrastructure and access to economies of scale through procurement or commercial services. So they've got revenue management, they've got access to marketing. But from a guest perspective, they are very much staying at an independent hotel. They're having that really authentic local experience. But the hotels management side have got the benefit of having a really trusted partner that they can work with.
Both
so
worlds,
yeah,
isn't it?
It really is. It's interesting how that is becoming much more of a trend. And then you've got the big brands that have recognised the slight shift in customer behaviour for these more, I would say, lifestyle brands, the more kind of connected to the destination, the community, and we've seen a big surge in Curio, Vignette, luxury collection, which we known and worked with. But I remember in our Starwood days, a lot of the Italian properties, it was Hotel Daniele and the Alfonso in Seville, that were these beautiful, very historic hotels that had been there for centuries. But they still had the benefit of the infrastructure and the loyalty program and the distribution channels because they were part of this bigger brand. So that there's really interesting to see how that there's a movement there, and certainly a few hotels that we've worked with recently are moving away from that big kind of hard stamp brand above the door and moving to something a bit softer, whether it's a white label or an independent hotel, but with the assurances of a global brand. It's really interesting, just the nuanced areas and very much driven by travelers' choice and by shifting demands of the guest and the marketplace. So I think, really in summary, I think we can really see the benefits, opportunities, challenges of both sides. And as you say, we've got this kind of nice sweet spot in the middle with this hybrid solution. And really, I suppose, from a hotel owner's perspective, investor perspective, it's looking at, what their visions are. And I think there's a huge amount of choice now of being able to select a brand or having an independent hotel or hotel brand that then is supported by a larger organisation, or just having your independent hotel that's very much ran by the team. And also that can work really well. And I think with the advances of technology, they can still play in that marketplace very effectively without necessarily having the backing of these big brands.
Yeah, which is better, Ash?
Oh, now you've put me on the spot.
I think both can work. Whatever's done, it has to be done well. I think that's probably the absolute key. Whether it's and an independent hotel has a brand. there is a brand attached
there's
to
that emotional
the name,
yeah.
the Goring, that becomes a brand. Your people become your brand. Your service culture becomes your brand. Your customers become your brand, I suppose. And it's just fitting in with the match between the customers and the experience that they have.
Yeah, and knowing what your USP is and really playing to that, because I think now there's so many hotel brands and there's a lot of hotels that say they do similar things as well. And I think you have to have the proof points that I always come back to. How are you showing people that this is actually what you do? If you say you've got a sustainability policy and you're connected with the community, great. Well, show me what you do. Give me some examples. Give me some proof. So, I think it's all about providing that quality, that personalization and consistency, and doing it all well and building that loyalty, whether that's for your independent hotel or your global brand.
Yeah, definitely. And for team members, for employees?
It's an interesting one because, we have benefited from being in that global branded environment. And, I've lived in Thailand for a few years working with Starwood. Just drop that in, It depends, and I'm really grateful for having that experience of a big brand at the early part of my career. I think it's helped me with understanding frameworks and that level of real professionalism and being able to then apply that at a smaller scale when, working with independents. So for me, I'm really grateful personally for that global brand experience at the earlier stages in my career. And then, maybe as you become more established, you can kind of take those collection of experiences and then apply that to, a smaller entity, an individual brand. Then, but I think, it's really a personal circumstances can dictate. And how about you?
I love both experiences. I thought they were great. And I certainly found that when at the more branded, you're really focusing on hyper personalization, trying to get as personal experiences for customers as possible. And then when you're at a sort of independent brand, you're trying to create those structures that maintain that consistency throughout the experience for guests as well. So it was always a balance of the two, trying to take what works best within the hotel and trying to take elements. So having had both those experiences, I think it really helps us now as consultants to try and find what's going to work best for any of our clients. And then from a guest perspective, it really is what you want to experience. And at the end of the day, either type of hotel that does what they do really well is going to be a great experience.
Yeah.
Whether it's a 3-star or a 5-star, just people who are team members that are really authentic and genuine and work hard and care for the customers are going to be offering a better experience and a better service than people who aren't engaged with the brand of their own hotel, whether that's an independent or a big name branded hotel.
Yeah.
I think that really is the key to it. Thank you for listening to The Halo Effect, Hospitality Stories with Ashleigh and Michael Donald.
Hope that this has helped fellow hospitality people and entrepreneurs who may be on a similar journey.
If you would like to suggest any topics for future episodes, ask us a question, or would like to join us on a future episode of the podcast, then please get in touch. We've linked up our contact details in the show notes.
Don't forget to like and subscribe or follow The Halo Effect on whatever platform you listen to your podcasts. We look forward to welcoming you back to the next episode of The Halo Effect, Hospitality Stories with Ashleigh and Michael Donald.